טוב, אני גם מתנצל, אני הרבה יותר יהיה לי קל לעשות הרצאה באנגלית, so I will switch to English and hopefully it will be helpful for everybody. I of course sign off on everything that Professor Schiller said, and I think we do have a problem in Israel in robotics, and I'm not going to address it in my talk, but I want to strengthen the points. I want to strengthen another point that I feel always when I get to these meetings, especially in Israel, but not just in Israel. The real lack of representation of women in this industry is very, very stark, and I think we should all work more to have a more balanced community. It's both on the other side where the startups are, and it's both here, and I think it's something we should all worry about and think about how we can contribute to solving this. I want to talk about the robotics user interface. Professor Schiller said we're at an exciting time for robotics. If you look around the world, it seems like 2014 was the big breaking year for the idea that humans and robots can have a future together, living together. The Economist, which I consider to be right in the center of the mainstream, had a special issue about personal robotics and human-robot interaction. And of course, we talked about the big acquisitions that happened by user-facing companies. Companies that are selling products to users are buying some of the best robotics companies that I know. But basically, anything that was for sale in the US was bought last year. On the smaller market, we have products like Jibo, which is a personal home robot that doesn't do anything except communicate with people, and raised easily over $2 million within a few weeks on Indiegogo. And that's one signal that we are at a turning point of the acceptance of robots and humans sharing spaces and sharing their lives. I think another indication is this. We have kids buying and assembling robots for prices that are unbelievable to anybody who's been in robotics for more than 5 years. Mobile robots for coming close to $20, faster and more reliable ones for $100, robotic manipulators for under $200, flying robots for around $100. And I think this is really an indication that people are getting excited about the fact that you can make a robot in your bedroom. And it reminds me of my own childhood when I was maybe that age of the kids that buy these robots now. When I asked my mom to buy me one of those, this was a computer for the younger people in the audience. It doesn't have a screen, but it's still a computer. And it was unbelievably $600, and even more if you wanted to save your programs for the next day. It was another $150. Next time you feel your USB cable is too expensive, just remember this. And I think the point was that people thought I was crazy, right? Everybody thought the kids were crazy, that they wanted to program computers in their bedrooms. Who needs a computer in their bedroom? Computers are for banks, insurance companies, airlines. Nobody needs a computer in their bedroom, but I'm assuming that all of you have used a computer in your bedroom in the last 24 hours. And I think us geeky kids in the 80s were an indication of what was about to happen to computing, which means that it was about to come into everybody's lives. And I think the geeky kids of the 2010s who are excited about this are an indication of what's going to happen to robotics in the next 20, 30 years. And I think we're going to be surprised that just as we can't imagine today a grocery store without a computer or a gym without a computer, we won't be able to imagine a grocery store or a gym or anything, an office or a bedroom without a robot. And I think this is really about to happen. When we ask ourselves what happened to computing technology and to the focus of the computing industry when it moved from the industrial to the personal, I think it has some of the answers of what we want to know about what will happen to robotics when it moves from the industrial to the personal. So when in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people were mostly concerned about computation, efficiency, and algorithms, if you look at the biggest tech companies today, they're really concerned about the user experience and how people interact with computers. Of course, the algorithms and technology and computation is still important, but the user experience has become the focus of the biggest and most successful companies. And I think similarly, we will see that when robotics today is really concerned with manipulation and navigation and grasping, I believe that in 20 years, many of the biggest robotics companies are going to be concerned with the robotic user experience. And that's what I want to talk about. That's the title of this talk. What is the robotic user experience? The robotic user experience is going to be very different from the screen-based user experience for the one reason that robots have something amazing that no other computer has, which is a physical body that can move in space. And a physical body moving in space will always impress any beautiful icon or animation or screen or button. And just to show you a small example that I really love from 2006, Curio is a robot made by Sony, who unfortunately killed the robotics division for bad reasons, I think. And here you will see a very simple algorithm. The algorithm is, look at the size of the face in the camera, and based on the volume of the person speaking and the size of the face, keep a certain distance. So if the person speaks louder, move away. If the person speaks more softly, stay closer. First year computer science exercise, 2 if loops and 2 if blocks. Very simple algorithm, but look at the effect of it. This is a regular voice. The robot stays in the same. Now he raises his voice. The robot takes a larger distance. What I want to say here is that the fact that the robot moves away from the person is a huge bang for your buck. You know, you get this, like, I think most of you, if you're not really trying to be very cynical and cold-hearted about this, feel that the robot was a little bit scared, maybe a little bit shy, and if the robot would fall over this thing while backing up, I think most of us will feel, for a moment, feel a little bit bad for the robot. So what I'm saying is that I know it's a robot, and I'm not trying to say that the robot has feelings we should care about, but that it's hard for every one of us to not feel something for something that moves in our space.
That's because of us, not because of the robot.
Yeah, but we are the customers of the robotics companies. So as long as we sell stuff to humans, we're fine. Human brain is going to be sensitive to this. And I agree with you. Of course, the robot, I don't mind. I mean, studies show that people do mind killing robots. And they mind killing robots that are intelligent more than robots that are not intelligent, by the way. So in studies where they ask people to smash a robot with a hammer, a robot that had machine learning, people were less likely to want to smash it with a hammer. But that's another topic. Robotic body language. So robots can use their body language to communicate. And psychologists have looked at body language for many decades. And we, in our field, use what psychologists have found about body language to try to build our robots to have their own body language. And body language can be something as simple as a bow to indicate that you realize the person sat next to you, just like the other robot did. So this is a very simple robot, but when you sit down, it bows. And it you can't almost not bow to it. It mirrors your posture. So when you come closer, the robot comes closer and meets you halfway. And when you're sitting in an unhealthy posture, the robot might refuse to work with you. So here, the person sits down in an unhealthy way, and the robot will not, the computer will not work with that person. And the nice thing is that everybody understands what the robot means. It doesn't want to work with you. You understand it just like you understand when your kid does this when you tell them to clean the room or to pick up whatever they dropped on the floor. So there's something very intuitive. And this is a very simple robot using very simple body language. A robot can, of course, have much more sophisticated body language, like bowing forward to show that speech processing is happening, or looking at something to indicate what it's currently thinking of. Like in this, a much more expensive and much more expressive robot, where it uses gaze, for example. It uses its ears to show that it's processing speech. And it uses gestures like nodding to indicate it understands something. And again, in another video, it's interesting to see that when the robot nods at the end, the human usually nods back to it automatically. One of the most powerful parts that we just saw about body language that robots can use is the idea of eye contact. Eye contact and gaze is a very powerful thing. If you've ever been on a date or interrogated by the security forces, you know that the eye contact can be used in a very powerful way. But interestingly, a good thing for us, robots don't need to have eyes to make eye contact. Eye contact is something even more primitive than using eyes. Here's the robotic lamp that Sue was talking about. And we're going to see how it makes eye contact, even though it only has a big head and no eyes at all.
Look at me like that.
You understand? Now it's going to get offended by the insults of the actor.
Patronized by a mute.
We can see breaking the eye contact immediately is very clear for us to understand. In one case, we can see the robot being, caring about this woman. and being confrontational with the male actor just by using this idea of eye contact and body language.
It was already dead. Just lay there. Eyes glazed over.
This is part of a theater production. How important is body language? As part of my research, I was working at Georgia Tech with Gil Weinberg, and we built an improvising robotic musician. It was actually, I saw Yossi was coming in. Yossi invited us when it was just built to demonstrate it at DLD. And when we built this robot, I'll show you a small part of it. The robot's actually highly interesting in terms of the algorithm because it listens to music, it improvises, and matches your tempo and your density, etc. So it just show a little bit of it. And you can watch this online. It's that's not. I want to talk about body language this time. And we thought that after this performance there was something missing because. Playing music is not just about making notes, because otherwise no one would ever go see a live show. Playing music is also about communicating with band members, communicating with the audience. And so we convinced the National Science Foundation, by the way, who are actually very risk-liking in terms of the kinds of things they like to fund, which I think is a good idea. And we convinced them to get an extra grant to build a socially expressive robotic head for the musician. Basically telling them we want to increase musicianship by building a head that all it does is communicate with the audience and communicates with the band members. And now look at the same improvisation algorithm. Nothing changed in the AI, but this time with a robotic head communicating to the other player when it's ready, what beat it's hearing, and when it listens to the person versus when it's focused on its own music. So now it's kind of showing me the beat that it analyzes from my playing. And people in the audience are already laughing. He hasn't even played a single note yet. And now it's joining me in playing and starts showing that it's getting into its own music, kind of moving from side to side. Or at the end, doing the final chord by indicating with a small head gesture that it's ready for the final chord. And this head, when we put it up online, being in Atlanta, which is a center of hip hop, soon enough we had hip hop artists in our lab who wanted to jam with our robot, and he didn't even care about the robot playing. All he cared about was the robot moving to the music. So we're going to see this little clip of a very short clip of this hip hop artist singing and bobbing with the robot's head. And notice two things. One of them is that when the robot bobs his head and the human kind of goes along, it's very hard to not get into the groove and kind of join the robot and feel something for it. And that's something that we've studied in our lab later on too. And the second thing is how powerful a gaze from the robot is. The robot is going to look at the human from the corner of his eye, and as soon as it happens, the human looks back because he feels that somebody's looking at him. Even though he's really focused on his phone at that point. So something that we all would wish our partners would do when they're focused on their phone. A robot can make this happen. So if you feel like your partner is maybe looking at their phone too much, you just need a huge robot looking at them once in a while, even if it's in the corner of the eye. But this is also the power of physical body language. You can't ignore it. It's not something you can turn around. Now look, the robot turns around, and he notices and looks back at him. And after all the AI and all the complicated improvisation algorithms, people seem to care only about the robot's head. For example, this guy.
Jazz robots, which combines two of the biggest threats to our nation, jazz and robots. Researchers at the Georgia Tech Center for Music Technology have developed Shimon, a fully independent four-armed marimba-playing automaton that can improvise along with human players. I can only assume he comes pre-programmed with a heroin addiction. But this felonious junk doesn't just play jazz, he's been programmed to dig it too, bobbing his head to the beat and checking in with his fellow players. meaning that long after the robot uprising kills all the humans on Earth, there will still be someone on the planet pretending to enjoy jazz.
And I think that while we realize that he has great writers and steals people's videos without permission, that's why I never feel bad for stealing from Comedy Central, he doesn't just say that the robot moves to the music. He says the robot digs the music. The robot seems to enjoy jazz. So this projection that you said that people do, this projection of intention and emotion and feeling and desires onto a moving object is something that is almost irresistible. And people do this, of course, also about their cars. My car doesn't want to start, etc., etc. So the next robot we built, I'm going to skip over this because I'm a little bit over time. We did a robot that all it does was listen to music and enjoy music. But I want to talk to you about another project because this has been getting a little more attention. This is another robot that we took this idea of people feeling that the robot does have emotions. And we thought, what if a robot's emotions can help people understand each other's emotions better? So this is something we call an empathy robot. And this robot doesn't like people shout around it, so it's very useful in Israel. And the idea was that if people raise their voices, it gets scared and might make people think, okay, maybe the other person is also uncomfortable and I might want to lower my voice. And so I'll show you a short clip of this before concluding.
The robot has 3 emotional states: curious, calm, and scared, and will react depending on the volume and tone of conversation.
Oh, he will get curious, so move forward and try to listen more.
So we're going to try it out now. Hey!
But quickly gets scared and shakes when we're angry.
That was pretty scary, I have to say. And immediately I could see in her body language that she's starting to feel very uncomfortable. The robot got scared by her. And I think, first of all, it's a big achievement to get a British person to raise their voice. That was, I think, the biggest. It took us a long time. But the point is that people interpret this and might subconsciously also change their behavior. So to summarize, I believe we are going to the future where we will have robots as part of our lives. And I think in a lot of cases, people are worried that these robots might take away jobs and might maybe make people, and I think Roy Cezanna talked about this somewhat. And I think people are right. This is a real worry we need to think about. And I think we also need to remember that the people who are going to be affected by this are not going to be us. It's going to be people from a weaker socioeconomic stratum, and we need to think about these questions. But in a lot of other cases, I think robots will be living with us, helping us, collaborating, accompanying us in whatever we want to do. And in this case, we want robots to be as intuitive and as subtle and as natural as possible. And I think for me, this means that robots will use their body as the way to communicate. And the beautiful thing is that everybody understands body language. It's maybe the most democratizing interface you can think about. Children, old people, people who can't read can all use body language. People from any language can use body language. And there's a beautiful irony here because in the end, I think the interface of the future will be sort of the interface of the past and will be the most ancient way that humans have ever known how to communicate. So thank you very much.